In the previous classes, I have discussed about the ventricle of the brain. They are the two lateral ventricle, one the third ventricle and the fourth ventricle, and these ventricles are connected with the different foramen. The lateral ventricle to the interventricular foramen and the third ventricle to the aqueduct of Salvius and the fourth ventricle, and from the fourth ventricle the CSF flows in the central canal of the spinal cord. Now, the lateral ventricle. I will discuss about the lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle. Lateral ventricle. What is lateral ventricle? The each cerebral hemisphere, not the cerebellum. The cerebellum is different thing and the cerebral hemisphere is different thing. Each cerebral hemisphere has a cavity called lateral ventricle. Each cerebral hemisphere has a cavity called lateral ventricle. And we know that there are the four parts of brain. Four parts of the brain. What are the four parts? The four lobes of the brain. First is the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the temporal lobe, and fourth, that is the occipital lobe. First is the frontal lobe, second is the parietal lobe, third is the temporal lobe, and fourth is the occipital lobe. Now this lateral ventricle has the different horn. This lateral ventricle has the different horn. This lateral ventricle has the different horn. The anterior horn. First is the anterior horn. Second is the posterior horn. Third is the body or central part of the lateral ventricle. And central part of the lateral ventricle. And fourth is the inferior horn of lateral ventricle. The inferior horn of the lateral ventricle. And these horns are situated in the different lobe of the brain. Suppose this is the anterior horn. This is located in the frontal lobe. The posterior horn, it is located in the occipital lobe. And inferior horn, it is located in the temporal lobe, and body, it is located in the parietal lobe. And this lateral horn, it is connected with the lateral ventricle. It is connected with the third ventricle to the foramen, that is the interventricular foramen. This is the lateral ventricle, and this lateral ventricle have the horn, the anterior horn, the body, the posterior horn, and the inferior horn. And these horns are located in the different lobe of the cerebral hemisphere. The anterior horn is located in the frontal lobe. The body is located in the parietal lobe. The posterior horn, it is located in the occipital lobe, and the inferior horn, it is located in the temporal lobe. What is choroid plexus? The term is choroid plexus. It is a network of blood vessels present in each ventricle of the brain. It is the network of blood vessels present in each ventricle of the brain. It means this choroid plexus, it is present also in the lateral ventricle, the third ventricle, and the fourth ventricle. And what is the function of this choroid plexus? It produces the CSF. It produces the CSF, that is the choroid plexus. In the next video, I will discuss about the details of this horn. Thank you.